Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Threads, the Textile Innovation Show, with me, Fiona Harron.
And me, Jessica Owen.
This week's show is sponsored by Innovate, a 5-day virtual event that connects innovators from across the textile and apparel industry to find suppliers, evaluate the competitive environment, attend educational programmes and much more. The event takes place from the 25th to the 29th of October 2021, and if you would like to register for free, please click on the link below.
But to kick off the show in this week's news, the UK sustainability charity WRAP has officially launched Textiles 2030, the UK Sustainable Textiles Action Plan, which it has called the most ambitious 10-year programme for clothing and textiles in the world. Over the next decade, the voluntary agreement will reduce the environmental impact of UK clothing and home fabrics through practical interventions along the entire textiles chain. WRAP's CEO, Marcus Gover, says that Textiles 2030 will create a fashion sector fit for the future, adding that we simply cannot afford for sustainability not to be the next big thing in fashion.
Ahlstrom-Munksjo has signed a marketing licence with Soteria Battery Innovation Group to ramp up the manufacture of fibre-based separators for lithium-ion batteries. The agreement is said to be an important step in the commercialisation of Ahlstrom-Munksjo's solutions to the energy storage market. The latest addition was the 40-cell lab range, a portfolio of fibre-based solutions for lead-acid battery applications launched in the second half of 2020.
Elsewhere, INDA has released the 2020 Non-Woven Supply Report. Based on extensive research, producer surveys and interviews with industry leaders, findings from this year's report show that the North American non-woven capacity increased to 5.552 million tonnes, a net increase of 39,000 tonnes over 2019. And that North American imports increased by 51% and exports increased by about 14%. Brad Khalil, Director of Market Intelligence and Economic Insights at INDA, says this is a great time to be in non-wovens. We are in a business that is expanding faster than the economy as production growth exceeded US real GDP for the 7th consecutive year.
Finally, Circular Systems has announced that its AgriLoop 1.0 technology is believed to be the first to convert stalks from CBD hemp crop leftovers into fibre used for fashion products. Using crop leftovers that are typically discarded, downgraded or often burned, the proprietary technology refines leftover stalks into AgriLoop biofibre for apparel, marking the first time CBD hemp fibre has been used in commercial fashion textiles.
Now on to today's show, and earlier this week I caught up with Esma Tarlu, the Marketing Manager and Sustainability Leader for Dow, and Jason Burns, the Senior Vice President of Product and Manufacturing Innovation at Ralph Lauren, to talk about Ralph Lauren's new zero wastewater cotton dyeing system called Colour on Demand.
So Ralph Lauren has recently announced that it has developed the first phase of a platform called Colour on Demand, which aims to be the world's first scalable zero wastewater cotton dyeing system. So Jason, how long has Ralph Lauren been working on this and how important is it?
Yeah, so we started on this journey years ago. So we started in 2017. And the idea was really to see if we could dye our product closer to market originally. And the challenge that solves is really meeting market demand where it is. And that helps with sustainability as well and removes overproduction. So that was really the simple question that was asked. And that really started this journey that led us to the Colour on Demand platform. And really took years to get there. But it solves some really big problems ultimately. The wastewater that's generated by the fashion industry is massive. It actually accounts for almost 20% of global wastewater, according to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And textile dyeing effluent is pretty nasty stuff traditionally. It has salts, it has excess dye stuff, really a lot of those things. It's pretty dirty and takes a lot of effort to clean. So this is a really big problem to solve. And we looked at a bunch of different technologies and actually were really struggling until we got a call from our sports marketing folks who handle our Olympics partnership. And they said, hey, Dow reached out to us through the US Olympic Group, and they have a treatment for cotton that might be able to help us with dyeing. Would you like to speak to them? And we said, why, yes, we would love that. And that's really how we started this program and this journey together to really reinvent how cotton is dyed.
Right. Gosh, that's so interesting. I didn't know that. So I understand that this new system recycles and reuses water, reduces chemicals, and also saves time and energy. So could you talk me through the platform and how it works to achieve these savings, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a key piece of it is the Dow EcoFast pretreatment that Esma will tell us more about. But really, it's about partnership. So, the pretreatment that Dow has created, EcoFast Pure, sets the cotton up to be dyed, and then we have other partners in place, right? So we have Genealogia, we have Huntsman Textile Effects, and then Corob. Genealogia is focused on dyeing equipment and then water cleaning equipment, right? The great thing about this platform is that what comes out of the dyeing machine is much, much cleaner than what you'd normally see. And so these sort of mini water treatment systems that Genealogia has allow for that water to be cleaned very effectively. Huntsman Textile Effects is obviously a dye specialist, so they're able to help us create optimized dyes for this. And then Corob specializes in paint mixing. They actually make the type of mixers you'd see at a do-it-yourself store. And so, really, working with this ecosystem of partners is what lets the entire platform work, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're starting today using EcoFast, that's phase 1. And then we'll be rolling out these other pieces and components for this system over time.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that actually. So to Jason's point of combining expertise, the Ralph Lauren team brings a wealth of industry knowledge to this table, and the Dow team complements it with our understanding of the chemistry. So we've been working together for roughly 3 years, like Jason said, in addressing these challenges, specifically implementing Dow's EcoFast Pure technology into Ralph Lauren's dyeing process. So this product, EcoFast Pure, is core to the Color on Demand platform, especially this first phase, and it's critical to enabling the final ambition. So EcoFast Pure in the cotton dyeing process enables up to 63% CO2 emissions reduction, which is very significant. Specifically in dyeing, it enables savings of up to 90% process additives, 50% water, 50% less dyes, and 40% less energy compared to traditional dyeing. So you can imagine the impact that can have when it's at scale. So EcoFast Pure is enabling this first phase of Color on Demand and a critical component to the entire platform.
I mean, can you tell me a bit more about EcoFast Pure then and the process and how you've been able to sort of achieve those reductions?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So what EcoFast Pure is, it's a cationic cotton treatment. It's applied to cotton prior to being dyed. So it permanently changes the charge of cotton to be positively charged, which makes dye that's naturally negatively charged better attract and bond to cotton. So to bring some chemistry into all this, we are the chemistry company after all. So otherwise, without EcoFast, dye and cotton do not attract. They're both negatively charged, so they repel. So lots and lots and lots of process additives are required to make the bonding possible. So that's why there's significant savings using EcoFast. So because you can pre-treat cotton with EcoFast, you can save up to 90% process chemicals. You can save up to 50% less dye. You can use less dye. And you can also use up to 50% less water. The reason for this being is there's less washes needed after dyeing because the dye is uptaken so much more efficiently. And then finally, one of the largest benefits, you can save up to 40% energy savings because you can now dye cotton at room temperature, whereas previously you would have to increase the water temperature significantly to get the dye to uptake on cotton. So we've quantified a lot of these savings in trials and full-scale production runs, and most recently we conducted a full life cycle assessment from cradle to grave on using EcoFast Pure in this process and have that externally validated as well. So one thing I will add is the exact savings can vary from mill to mill, of course. It depends on the type of equipment. It depends even on the local climate. But that goes back to what we were talking about earlier of why collaboration is so important. And we're really hand in hand at the mill working with Ralph Lauren on optimizing the process so that everyone can get the highest and best benefit using this product in their process.
What a brilliant new system that Ralph Lauren and its partners have created. I mean, those savings, such as 85% less chemicals, 40% less water and 90% less energy, are really impressive. So let's hope this becomes the benchmark for all dyeing and colouring in future.
Yeah, well, it might not be long actually until this happens, considering that Ralph Lauren has decided to make the platform open source. So perhaps we'll even see more companies start to share their expertise more freely now, so that the industry can move towards a more sustainable future.
Now it's time for a short video from this week's sponsor, Innovate. And after that, we'll be speaking to WTIN's Joe Link about digital microfactories.
Now, next up, we are joined in the studio by WTIN's very own Joe Link to talk about digital microfactories, a concept for the virtual development and digitally networked production of personalised textiles and clothes. So hello, Joe. Thank you very much for joining us. So why is there so much talk about digital microfactories in 2021?
Well, consumer buying habits are changing, which is enabling digital microfactories to grow. So for over a decade, there has been a steady increase in e-commerce transactions in consumer markets, and this trend really accelerated during the pandemic when non-essential retail stores were forced to close. It is true that online sales of fashion and apparel didn't grow during the pandemic, but the key is that many consumers were using e-commerce platforms to shop, and this included generations that traditionally would have preferred to purchase a product in store. So this can only be a good thing for online clothing brands and retailers long term, as it does expose them to new demographics. But I guess there is another key question, which is why the growth in e-commerce is increasing demand for digital microfactories. Well, firstly, there are more online stores emerging, and these stores benefit from not having to handle inventory. So any order that comes through an online store, on Shopify for example, is increasingly sent direct to a digital microfactory or on-demand fulfillment center, and they then handle the manufacturing process and subsequent delivery. So since the beginning of the pandemic, we have seen a number of interesting product announcements from both OEMs and digital microfactories that aim to streamline operations. So Cornet Digital just last week launched its new Max technology for its Atlas D2G printer, and also Print Logistic a little longer ago launched Smart Factory, both of which are good examples of technologies which can improve a digital microfactory's operations. But there are also others available out there on the market. And secondly, the personalization trend has had a significant impact. But personalized products can only really be achieved online through 3D customizers or other software plugins, whereas traditional high street retailers have struggled to offer such on-demand services. So consumers are gradually wearing more bespoke statement pieces, and the technologies within the digital microfactory are very well suited to manufacturing one-off personalized garments.
And what technologies would you say are required to operate a digital microfactory successfully?
There was actually a panel session at the recent virtual Drupal event which discussed this, but for a digital microfactory to succeed, they need to provide all cut, make, trim operations under one roof to keep costs down and also lower turnaround times, because these businesses don't really have the luxury to outsource production. But inkjet textile printing is particularly important for a digital microfactory because it is more cost effective to print low volumes with inkjet than it is traditional analog screen printers. And to add to that, the personalization element, which I've touched upon a little already, means D2G printers have become very popular among digital microfactories in recent years. However, these machines primarily print onto t-shirts, but online consumers want to buy a wide variety of printed textile products these days. For instance, interiors have been in high demand during the pandemic, whereas, due to lockdowns, consumers have been investing more in their homes rather than themselves. But for interior furnishings and other applications as well, microfactories are requiring roll-to-roll printers on a more regular basis. And low-volume roll-to-roll printers are often the preferred choice among digital microfactories, which is why their sales fell to a lesser extent than more productive printers last year. So looking ahead, digital microfactories are expected to increase their output, but their capacity remains too small to offset the global demand for fashion and apparel, especially when demand returns after the pandemic, as economies reopen. So microfactories may benefit from the nearshoring movement as the decade progresses, but I imagine there will still be a need for high volume inkjet textile printing for decades to come.
Some really interesting insights there. Thanks, Joe. We'll be keeping a close eye on the development of microfactories in the post-COVID textile market.
Yes, well, that's all we have time for today, but join us again next week for another update on the latest textile innovations making the headlines.
See you next time.